Hotswap sockets let you insert and remove switches from PCBs without needing to solder. They've been exploding in popularity over the last few years, and even Keycult, one of the most prestigious and sought-after keyboard designers, recently introduced Hotswap sockets into their PCBs. But just what kind of impact do Hotswap sockets have on the sound and feel of a board? Do they make them feel more wobbly? Do they make them sound more rattly? These are the questions we'll be exploring today. Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to test 3 separate PCBs on this #1 Rev 1 board from Keycult. The first PCB has Hotswap sockets from Kailh, which are the standard solution for PCBs that come with Hotswap sockets out of the box. Then we have a PCB with 7305 mil-max sockets, which are the go-to DIY solution when you want to solder Hotswap sockets into an existing PCB. If you want to learn more about installing mil-max sockets, check out the mil-max tutorial I uploaded last week. Lastly, we have a normal PCB that we're just going to solder switches directly onto. We'll start by comparing the sound of Tangerine switches back to back on each PCB. Then I'll comment on the differences between feel and wobble. I'm going to leave each switch in the exact same precision for each PCB to make the test as realistic as possible. You ready? Let's do this. First off, we'll hear a sound test of each PCB back to back. I've played back the audio several times and I honestly can't tell a difference between the 3. So I think in terms of sound, Hotswap sockets are not going to affect your build. Now let's talk about wobble. Here's a comparison of moving a few switches and keys around on each PCB. Just like the sound test, I couldn't really feel or see any difference between the 3. I think this is mainly because switch stability comes from 3 different things: the sockets, the switch pins, and most importantly, the plate. If you're going with a plateless or a half plate build, then I strongly suggest you stick to soldering. Otherwise, I think you're fine getting a Hotswap PCB or making your own Hotswap PCB by using mil-max sockets. But there are a few things you should keep in mind when deciding on whether you should get a Hotswap PCB. First off, you're going to scuff your plate if you're repeatedly adding and removing switches, which might be important if you're doing this on a high-end board. Secondly, the bottom of your PCB is going to take up a little bit more space, which might be important if you're planning on adding foam between the bottom of the PCB and the case, as your PCB is going to fit a little more tightly. Also, most Hotswap PCBs have a fixed layout, meaning you can't do things like use a smaller or bigger spacebar than what's offered in the PCB. Of course, if you're using mil-max sockets, you won't have this problem because you can insert those sockets wherever you want. Lastly, if you have a bent plate, you're going to have a really hard time using Hotswap because your switches are going to feel really loose and they're going to pop out by accident as you're typing. If a keyboard offers a Hotswap PCB and I'm okay with the layout, I usually always get the Hotswap PCB because it saves me time in the long run. And there's something really exciting about being able to build a board 10 minutes after you receive it. Not to mention, you don't have to desolder the switches when you want to relube them, and you don't have to desolder anything if you want to retune the stabs. Overall, it's just a really big time saver. I want to know what you think of the Hotswap versus solder debate, so let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, remember to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, bye!